welcome you back once again to Pastor B's Kitchen Table. As you know, this is the place where we break it up, put it back together again, and make it all fit the way it was meant to fit, because it's the kitchen table, and you know at the kitchen table, everything is real and relevant, and sometimes it even gets a little raw. But we thank God for this opportunity to be here at this kitchen table one more time, and that you chose to join us again. And today we got a great panel with us today. We're going to talk about something that you probably have thought about, have heard about, but you've never been informed about. But before I jump into that topic, let me introduce my guest today. Will you say hello? Tell them who you are.
Hello, I'm Lynette Shepard with Greater Works Global Missions. I'm proud to be here today. Glad to be here.
Amen.
And I'm Jasmine Price. I'm here with Greater Works Global Missions as well. And I'm happy to join you guys as well.
Amen, amen, amen. We're here talking today, as I said, about a subject that's many times is heard through the media, but we never get up close and personal to it. And that is about human trafficking. So if you could just walk us down this corridor, what is human trafficking?
Human trafficking is a modern-day slavery, but it is also transporting and distributing human beings in an illegal manner. It can be by force, deception, fraud, and it's for the purpose of sex exploitation and for profit. Generally, the victims generally do not receive any pay or very little pay. And so their traffickers are just, it can be a number of individuals who traffic them. Some, it's their family members, some it's gang members, some it'll be, just different people that they've come in contact with or involved with. So it becomes a very wide range of situations that can occur.
Wow. So you say it's modern day slavery. But they're actually taking people and transporting them. Transporting them where?
They can be transported anywhere around the world. But the most important part is that we know that transporting them can be in your city. You don't have to necessarily be transported across the country to another state. You can be transported down the street and be involved in sex trafficking. It's that close, that simple.
Wow. Because you hear in the media, you envision someone putting someone in the back of an 18-wheeler and kind of stuff them behind some produce or something like that and they take them to Mexico. But you're saying that's really not the way it always works.
No. The interesting thing about sex trafficking is that you can actually be sex trafficked out of your home.
Okay. You gotta explain that one. Explain that one.
Okay. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
You have a teenage girl.
Right, okay.
Who is in high school. She's in a relationship with a young man. Some way she's manipulated to have sexual relations with him. It's recorded. And then days, maybe weeks later, she's approached with it, but then told that if she doesn't do what they want her to do, that it would be shared either on YouTube or some form of social media to her parents, to her community. And in most cases, the victim immediately, complies to whatever that person is asking of them. And so he can at that point begin to sell her to his friends, or whenever I call you, you need to be available. It's that simple.
Wow. Because under the guise of, I'm not going to let your secret out,
Right.
It's blackmail.
It's blackmail. It's deception.
Wow. And so at that point in time, she becomes like his prostitute. And it can happen within a home. So in this whole human trafficking, can you just give us what part does social media play in this? Because I've heard it said before, I don't know if it's even true, that when it comes to human trafficking, sometimes it's as simple as when you're ordering a pizza. You can actually order someone. That's crazy.
It is. One of the things in the United States that they've done recently is shut down Blackpage. But it is now open.
What is Blackpage? Blackpage
was a internet site that you could go to and pretty much find any and everything you wanted, like ordering a pizza. Okay. It was shut down in the U.S., but then there is another country that actually opened it again So there's another black page out there. But it was as simple as you making a request. You were looking for, it may be advertised, a young girl, 13 years old. Well, they would not say 13, they would say 18 years old, willing to bring you pleasure. You know, and you could literally go through the list and find what you were looking for. There would be images of, and you could look at some of the young ladies and tell that they were not the age in which they were advertised at. But
Backpage also is pretty much like Craigslist, essentially, where you can click and say, I want to shop for this or shop for that, just like Ms. Lynette said. And they even got as fancy to use like certain emojis, so that way you couldn't, because they got to the point with Backpage where they would like kind of filter it out and take out the ads they were advertising young women, but they would use emojis and things like that to be kind of deceptive, so that a buyer would know what that emoji and that emoji meant, but it wouldn't be known to anybody who was filtering out the page.
Right. But they're ordering people.
yes,
They're ordering young girls.
yes. But not just young girls.
Okay, talk about that.
That's the misconception
Right.
that most people have, is that we think that it's, when we think about sex trafficking, it's just the young ladies. But it's not. It can be, you know, it can be your son.
Okay.
You know, it can be not your young lady, but your baby.
Yeah.
It's that corrupt, it's that.
How does it normally work though? What's the strategy? What's the mechanism that you've seen that is used to carry out, as you said, this deception?
I think the most important thing when we get to talking about the deception and how it's taken or how it's evolved is that there can be any time that I make threats against your family, or if there's a situation where there's an example where they talk about the young lady who went into a strip club, and she was a college student. She goes into the strip club, and her goal is to make extra money to pay off her tuition, and you know, and so she's approached within 2 to 3 days by a pimp who tells her that he's going to be her protector, he's going to be her, you know, her guide and all of that, and she's to report to him, but she has a quota to meet each and every night. And initially it kind of sounded good, you know, because he was going to be there and make sure the guys didn't touch her and make sure that nothing that she didn't want to happen would happen. And so as she agreed and began to walk with him, he actually took her into a back room and he allowed 12 other guys to rape her. At this point, she's crushed, she's broken, you know, ashamed, and a lot of manipulation begins to take place. And so now, you know, the fight in her is pretty much gone. You've stripped her of her dignity, you've stripped her of all these different things. And so she looks at it as though, you know, you are her support, you are, you know, you are that person who takes care of her and all of these different things. And so at this point, there's nothing that you can pretty much say that she will not do.
Okay.
And so a lot of situations are very similar to that. It's, you know, they break the person's morality and break them as individuals. And then once they're broken, you can pretty much mold them and shape them to do whatever and however you want them to.
In your years of being in this ministry, is there any particular profile? Because I say many times people assume that the person who's in this is someone who is rebellious, or someone who's a runaway, or someone who's, you know, in transitional living or something like that. But is there any particular profile of the people that you have seen who are engaged in this?
I think the profile is very open. There are people that you can say are targets,
Right.
and those are the low self-esteem. Those that are pretty much isolate themselves. Those who come from single-parent homes, or those that have been sexually molested or, you know, abused at some point in their lives. Those are those that will be prime targets. But anyone is a victim.
And I think that's the most salient point, is that it's anyone. It's not like it's just something that's in the projects or in the hood. It's in the suburbs. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
I went to a meeting and there was a speaker there, and we were talking about sex trafficking
Right.
and child abuse just in general. And his daughter was actually a victim. He was like, we have a great family life. She was a cheerleader. She was in high school doing everything she was supposed to be doing. She was like a great student, and she ended up getting caught up into that lifestyle because of a simple Instagram message and a guy telling her that she was beautiful, and it just continued over days and time and like months. And I think it was about a year or so that he like worked on her, and she got caught up into that lifestyle. So it could be somebody from just a general background who has a great life that still gets caught up into that because they have little weak spots of being a little bit vulnerable or having low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And what she just described is what they generally characterize as Romeo pimps.
Okay.
It's because they will pursue you
Right.
as long as it takes. And in the process of pursuing you, you know, they begin to isolate you from family members. They begin to pull you away from your social groups and different things. And you begin to feel as though that you are their one and only and all, to pull you into that lifestyle. And once you're into that lifestyle, you know, you then begin to see them for who they truly are.
Yeah.
But they are willing to take the time to pursue you, regardless to if it's 6 months or a year.
Wow. I read a horrific story today about this guy had sent, somehow he'd gotten social media information from all the middle schools, all the girls in his middle school. And he sent them out, he sent out a friend request, and so they could like him. And then when they ended up liking his request, he just more or less kind of what you're saying, just all year long, he just followed their profiles and just saw what they need to the point in which they had a need. Then he'd go in and say, well, I'll take care of you, I'm your friend, and just meet. Then eventually they had a meeting, and then of course they had a meeting, and then it was gone from there. But say just kind of more or less a stalking,
Right.
kind of cyber stalking, if you will, until that time in which someone said, I got a need, or I'm lonely, or can you? My parents don't understand. Can I see you and talk to you?
Right.
It's at that point in time that it took place. Many times we as African Americans, we don't talk about this. And it's not perceived to be in our community. Can you address that?
That's an interesting point. When we look at our people, what we generally do is we stereotype. We see a young lady who may be on the street, and we say, she has a choice. We see different people during different stages of their lives. And even with law enforcement, one of the things that they've begun to recognize is that a lot of times they've arrested young ladies, and they arrested them early in they're trafficking. And by the end, they look like they're on drugs, and they look like they're, have all these different issues. But from the first time that they were arrested to the very last time, no one ever asked them if they needed help.
Wow.
But one of the things that we see a lot in our community is that there's a lot of young ladies who willingly go into strip clubs.
Okay.
And within 48 hours, they're generally approached by a pimp who generally takes over their lives.
Now, when you say go into a strip club, do you mean go in as a paying participant, or as a customer, or they're going in as a performer?
They willingly go in as a performer.
Okay.
But within 48 hours,
They're approached by a pimp.
they are approached by a pimp. And in most cases, it's not a choice if you're going to do this. You're made to do it. But that's not something that we see. We see the changes in individuals. We can identify that this person is no longer the same. We can identify, but we automatically assume that they chose this lifestyle. This is something that they chose to do. And very seldom do we actually approach them and say, do you need help? Is there something going on? And because we are a very judgmental society, it becomes a situation where most people are very quiet about what is actually going on in their lives because they are afraid of being judged. But they're not only being judged, they're afraid of what the repercussions will be from the pimp. And so you have those situations. But then if we look in our media now, you see a lot of the young teenage girls who are influenced by coming up rappers.
Okay.
They fall into the trap of, he loves me, we're doing this, we're building his empire. And because they do that, they then go into situations where he is now pimping them out, you know, and they're prostituting, making the money for him to get the record deals or to do the performances. But we look at it again and say that, no, she's just a groupie. You know, you don't take in consideration the entire thing that is going on in that situation, because we look at it and we, being the strong people that we are, we immediately think that everything that we do is by choice.
Yeah.
And that it's not a force in it,
Yeah,
you know, that you
right.
chose to do this. And that's not always the situation.
It's almost the attitude of saying they brought it on themselves.
Right.
Yeah, they only get it because they chose to be in that environment.
Right.
They chose to run with those guys.
Right.
So that's what you get for it.
Right.
And so we say that if you don't do that, that won't happen to you.
Right.
But you're saying something totally different.
Right.
You're saying that there are forces at work, sinister forces at work, that cause them to feel trapped
Right.
and to be isolated.
Right.
Well, I keep hearing that the word sinister means isolation. Get them isolated and get them codependent, and then they really exploit them.
Right.
Yeah.
I imagine doing what you guys do, y'all have seen and heard a lot. How'd you get into this, and why'd you get into this?
Because when I really began to look back over my life and just the situations that I've been in, it could have been me. If the right person would have came along and said the right things,
Yeah.
it could have been me. And then just as like really digging into it and diving into having more knowledge and kind of desiring to share that information, it's been informed that, you know, a friend of mine's daughter was sex trafficked. A friend of my daughter's was actually sex trafficked. So
Maybe your daughter.
Yes.
This is close to home.
yes. And so it's like you go, it's not just across the street. This is like in my front yard. This is
Yeah.
at my front door. You know, and I have 2 girls, and so it's very important for me to make sure that I educate them to know the signs so that they do not become victims themselves.
Wow. That must have been a conversation with your daughter, with her friend. I mean, to explain that at the same time, you as a parent, you know, the fear, and at the same time, you know, you have to educate what's going on, but just to watch that, imagine the dynamics of that child's parents, knowing that your child has been taken.
But it was going back to our culture. It was what we saw was this young lady who went from being a star athlete, an AB student,
Right.
to doing some things that were questionable.
Right.
And so we immediately said that she was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and that she's doing this and she's doing that. And it was not until years later that we were actually informed of what it really was. And it's like, she was right there. We didn't see it.
Wow.
We didn't identify what was going on. And because we didn't identify, no one ever asked her if she needed help. No one ever, you know, reached out to her.
Right.
And so, and even with my friend's daughter, what we identify with her is that she was a runaway. You know, not understanding that in most cases, that even with runaways, that within 48 to 72 hours, the average runaway, 1 in 3 runaways will be approached by a pimp within 72 hours of leaving home. And so what we see then with her was that she would run away, and then she would be gone for months, and then she'd come back, and then she'd disappear again. And so as we begin to kind of look at some things, you begin to also understand that there are some traffickers that actually allow
Right.
their victims to go back home and to do different things. And they do that to remain in control.
Okay.
So, you know, if you do this, you do that, then I'll let you go home, and I'll let you go, you know, spend time with your family. But you have to come back.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of manipulation, a lot of deception that goes on, and control.
In control. What about you? How'd you find yourself into a ministry like this?
It's like back then I feel the same as Miss Lynette, where it could have been me.
Yeah.
I could have been in that wrong place at the wrong time,
Right.
or talked to that wrong person and got just hooked in. I'm currently working with foster children, and I see all walks of life because I deal with not only the children but their parents as well.
Right.
I have a current parent now, and she shared her story with me, and I was just heartbroken because she was trafficked. And this was after she was rejected by her birth parents, her adoptive parents, who returned her back into CPS custody. And because she felt alone and vulnerable and she felt unwanted, she ended up being a runaway and being trafficked as well when she was from the ages of like 13 to 16. So it's just, it could be anybody, and it's out there, and it's just happens so frequently. It's like, how can you not be drawn to these hurting people who no one deserves to go through this lifestyle, have to live this life and carry this baggage with them for the rest of her life? And even though this mom is like trying to make her life better, you can still see how she still carries everything she's been through with her, and now she has children.
Yeah.
And like, I know she doesn't want that to travel down to her children or to trickle down into her children, but she still has to find a way to like make it in life and see her that she's still worthy despite all the horrific things that she's been through. So it's just, when you're around these people and you hear these stories, it just calls out to your heart that like, we need to save these people. We need to get that information out there, because this could be literally anybody. Like, you could be sitting next to somebody on the bus or in church or just anywhere, and they could have gone through, and this could be their story.
Wow, you just caused so many questions to come to mind. One of the things is that so many times people feel that church is a refuge from the world. It's a place you can go and be safe and nothing will happen to you. And yet, that's not true. And so, have you heard of any stories? Are you aware of anything as a result of people being, because you're talking about this recruitment process, of people being recruited through the church?
Yes. So, it was actually a missionary, and this missionary was overseas, and he befriended a young man, and with this young man, he made him to believe that he was a part of his family. He would bring him to his family, to family events and different things, and so he began to sexually assault him, but he would always tell him that what he was doing is what families do.
Wow.
This is what families do. And eventually, because this young man was also an orphan, he convinced the orphanage that he was at to allow this young man to come to the States, where he not only continued to assault him, but he also allowed others to assault him. And then once it was brought to the church, because of the organization that it involved, they basically told him that he was to keep that situation between them, and that there was nothing else to be said. The elder did not lose his position.
Right.
And he actually went on to assault other young
Right,
men.
yeah.
And but there was nothing that was ever done because of the face that the church wanted to remain.
And I wonder about the young man, the young boy, the damage that was done to him.
Yeah.
Because that's not what family does.
No.
That's not what church is to do either. But in order to save face and present this pristine example.
And when you hear his story, he says it was not until he got to the States and began to observe other families that he began to realize that this is not what families do. And it was because of a relationship that he had with a young lady that he really understood that he had been trafficked and assaulted.
Wow. You guys just lift the lid on so many stereotypes and misconceptions. Because we always say, we thought it's an 18-wheeler and they take you to Mexico. And I'm sure that may happen on some occasions, but this is far more sinister than that. This is like right across your street. This is like in your house, which is a whole different domain. So what role do you guys play in this whole process?
Community education.
Okay.
It is our goal to educate our community.
Right.
And to get people involved. You know, as Christians, we always say pray about it. But this is a situation where you have to do more than pray.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's a saying that says, if you see something, say something. You know, and you may be the only person that can save someone's life.
Right.
You know, the interesting thing about sex trafficking is 99% of those that are sex trafficked are never rescued.
Oh, say that again.
99% of those that are sex trafficked are never rescued.
Now, when you say rescue, define rescue.
They never escaped that situation.
Okay, okay.
They never see a day of freedom.
A day of freedom.
The
Wow.
average lifespan of a sex trafficking victim is 7 years.
From the time they began to sex trafficking, 7 years.
7 years.
I hope you heard that what she said. 99% of the people are never rescued. They never come out of it, what you're saying.
Right.
And 7 years later, they're dead.
They're dead.
Wow. That is alarming. So they're living as dead people because they've been ripped their hope, their aspirations, their self-esteem and all that, and then they die. Is that death usually a result of abuse? Is it suicide? What usually causes the death?
It's all of the above.
All the above, okay.
You have those that do commit suicide. You have those that are because part of the trafficking ring is they keep them drugged.
Okay,
You know,
okay, okay.
they have other addictions like drug addictions. And then you have situations where their body have been so misused
Yeah.
that they have other issues that, you know, will take their lives.
Wow. Okay. I tell you what, we've only scratched the surface, and so we're going to do something here at Pastor B's kitchen table. We are going to go to break, and we're going to come back because there's more to be said here that I certainly want you to hear, that I want to talk about a few more issues related to this. So I want you, in the interim, to go find your mama, go find your daddy, go find all them, and bring them to Pastor B's kitchen table because you need to hear this. This isn't some mythic thing that happens in Venezuela or Australia. This is across your street, and you need to hear this. The Bible says children are a gift from the Lord, and yet what we've been hearing right now is that there are people who are not treating children like they're a gift. And you've got a child, I've got children, and so you need to be aware of what this is. So I'm going to take us to break right now. I'm going to come back, and I want you to come back. May God bless you. May God keep you. And I'll see you again, part 2, right here at Pastor B's kitchen table.